Gambling, a concept as old as time. People wanting to become richer by predicting the outcome of something. Will your hand go over or under 21? Will you get 3 sevens in a row? Will the ball land on red or on black?
Always bet on black.
And thanks to a ruling in 2018, it's now legal to bet on sports in some US states. And betting on sports is a huge industry. In 2017, the sports betting market was over $104 billion, with a projection to reach $155 billion by 2024. Now, in the last video, we talked about how many sports, which are no longer able to function during the pandemic, are being played out through the format of video games. And this isn't even to mention the existence of esports, which are already a billion-dollar industry on their own. But even though the pandemic and subsequent lockdown have greatly increased the number of people betting on esports, the numbers raised on average by esports betting are only a fraction of what you see in traditional sports betting. Why is this? Well, obviously esports are a much younger form of entertainment, but it's a good deal more complicated than just that. As always, I've done the research, so you don't have to. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more content from us. First, let's get a basic understanding of how normal sports betting works. Whether you've heard the name or not, everyone understands the concept of a money line bet. This basically means I think Team X is going to beat Team Y, and I'll bet 20 bucks on that. Depending on the odds calculated by the bookmaker or bookie, you can win back a profit if your team wins. Another type of bet common in sports betting is what's called a prop bet or proposition bet. Basically, this bet is a prediction that something will or won't happen in a game, and it's one that is found in both traditional sports and esports. An example of a prop bet in a football game would be to say Ezekiel Elliott, the running back for the Dallas Cowboys, is going to get over or under 35 rushing yards in the course of a game. An example of a prop bet in esports would be for Doublelift, the current AD carry for TSM, to CS over or under 200 creeps in the first 20 minutes. Now, which of these seem easier to understand? One of these bets is me saying this guy will run at least 35 yards, the other is me saying this guy will kill at least 200 of these tiny minions commonly referred to as creeps in the first 20 minutes of this game. Do you see the difference? And this simplicity is a huge issue with the accessibility of not only betting in esports, but esports catching on as a whole. Esports simply tend to be a bit more complicated than traditional sports to comprehend. You can take a kid to his first baseball game and explain pretty much everything as it happens, and they'll understand the basic rules of the game. If you were to take a sports betting professional and try to explain a game of Dota or League to them, after 55 minutes you'd be lucky if they even remember the names of the characters in the game they just watched. And this is to say nothing of the betting format used for esports. If we try to apply the basic betting formats commonly used in traditional sports to an esport, let's say League of Legends for example, which is the biggest esport for gambling and makes up over a third of all esports betting, it doesn't have a comparable point structure. The goal of the game is for one of the teams to get to the other team's base and destroy their nexus. It's a win or lose situation. You don't win by any points, so point spread betting, which is common in traditional sports like football and basketball, is out the window. You could base it off the kills the team gets, but the goal of the game isn't for players to rack up kills, it's simply to destroy the enemy team's base. You could create a fantasy league format for betting, but I'll get to that in a little bit. And trying to quantify how good a League of Legends player is a bit more difficult. You can't just moneyball a team together and say, okay, I've got this guy with a 400 batting average, he's gonna do great. While you can average out the stats for a player or even see their rank in solo queue, that doesn't equate one-to-one with their ability to perform well on a team. And there's even the discussion of what champions are in the meta at any given point, and the player's ability to adapt and play them. It's not like baseball is rolling out patch 10.7 and suddenly you have to worry about the changes to dragon buffs. Of course, League of Legends isn't the only esports game in town, but the second most popular esports game, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which makes up almost 30% of the esports betting market, is rather unorganized. There are so many leagues and so many teams, and none of the tournaments are organized by the game's publisher, Valve. And here's the thing. You might say, sure, League of Legends is hella complicated and you're probably gonna have to play the game like 40 hours yourself to even understand anything, but Counter-Strike Go is just shooty shoot. Surely I could just show up, watch that, and understand. Well no. While doing research for this video, I made an account on DraftKings, which is kind of the place to go if you want to bet on esports in the United States. There are more sites, but considering only 14 states have some form of legalization on sports betting, most of them haven't touched down here yet. Anyways, I made an account on DraftKings, and unfortunately there were no League of Legends games that I could bet on, which is the game I'm more familiar with. So I went with a CSGO fantasy draft, thinking, hey, I played this game almost 10 years ago, I could probably make sense of what's happening. Oh hell no! This game is extremely fast-paced, which might make it more exciting to watch, but if you don't know why people are constantly swapping their gun for their knife, why everyone's constantly chucking grenades at nothing, what are the intricacies of each map, and so on, you're gonna be confused. I watched for a long while and still didn't even have a grasp on some of the game's finer concepts. This also leads me to another point that's up for debate. Gamer tags. Are they hurting esports' appeal to broader markets? Personally, I think it's up for debate. Chances are, if you watch esports, you almost certainly play the game yourself. So you probably have your own gamer tag that you go by when you play. But when I was picking up players for my CSGO Fantasy League, a game I don't personally follow, I chose this guy, XYP3X. How the hell am I supposed to cheer for XYP3X?
Go Razzmatazz. Go Razzmatazz. Go Razzmatazz.
It's Bugle Boy winning by a head.
I lost everything.
I mean, what even is that? Elon Musk's next kid? Well, it turns out it's pronounced ZipX, but as someone who didn't know that until I heard it pronounced by the commentators, it made me care less. So just imagine the confusion of someone coming in who doesn't play one of these games and trying to make money off betting on esports. In the world of sports betting, there are people known as sharps, and their whole thing is that they don't view betting on sports as gambling per se, but more as making an investment. If they become known as a sharp, it's because they're making an income off their bets. They do a ton of research and only choose bets that they feel strongly on. Sharps know that if they're winning at least 55% of their bets, they are turning a profit. However, in the world of sharps, prop bets and fantasy draft bets are only for suckers, and they won't go for them. In traditional sports betting, the large majority of people doing so are doing it because they enjoy the sport, they're gonna watch the game anyways, and betting on it just makes it that much more interesting or entertaining to watch. There is still a smaller group of people who bet on sports to make money, but when it comes to esports, the group of people who understand and enjoy watching them are way smaller, and you're not going to see a number of sharps trying to get in on the business anytime soon. It's unorganized, it's hard to understand, and why bother when you can just keep up to date with the sports you already know and keep making a profit there. I'm not sure if there's a way for this to change, or at least in any rapid fashion, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, and after the quarantine ends and normal sports are able to be played again, we'll still see a higher number of people sticking around to watch and bet on esports. If I had to guess, I'd say probably not, but what do you think? Tell us about it in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to more content from us. Also, if you have some money that you're not throwing away on esports betting, consider heading over to our Patreon, where you can support us for some bonus content. And maybe check out our Twitch, where every Thursday night we record a live show talking through the week's current news in gaming. And if you're interested in more, check out our Discord. All of this and more will be in a link in the description down below. But either way, thank you again for watching, and until next time, have a wonderful day.